Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Coburn. I'm the Executive Vice President of Research America, and I want to thank you, our members, for joining us for this webinar today. The webinar topic is the Microbiome Initiative, a closer look. And we're very pleased to introduce our featured speaker, Dr. Stefano Bertuzzi, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Society for Microbiology. Stefano received a master's degree in public health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and has a Ph.D. in molecular biotechnology at the Catholic University of Milan in Italy. Dr. Bertuzzi has wide experience in science policy, association management, scholarly publishing, and was a senior scientific executive at the NIH in the Office of the NIH Director. So we are very fortunate to have Stefano with us this afternoon to speak on this important topic. He will provide an overview of the Microbiome Initiative and discuss the exciting implications this project holds. After his presentation, he will answer questions from the audience. So you may submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar by typing into the chat box on the GoToWebinar control panel. So it is truly a pleasure that I'd like to now turn the webinar over to Stefano, and again, thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike, and good afternoon to all of those who are on the Eastern Daylight Time, and good day wherever you happen to be. Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today, and as a loyal member as American Society for Microbiology, Research America, and commending all the great work that Research America does for advocacy in science. It is truly an honor for me and for my organization to be speaking to you today. So thank you so much, Mike, and thank you everyone for attending. In the next few minutes, 10 or 20 minutes, I'd like to maybe 20. I'd like to review the National Microbiome Initiative, where it started, and what the current status is, and how the future looks for this initiative. So, for some reason, I can't advance now. Here, there we go. Should work now. Exactly. Before that, let me tell you very briefly why the American Society for Microbiology is particularly interested in this, and what we are and what we do. So we're the largest single life sciences society. We have over 47,000 members, scientists and health professionals. 50% of them are outside of the United States in 122 countries. We have 35 branches in the United States, 27 scientific divisions that capture all the subdisciplines of the microbial sciences, which is already giving you a sense of the breadth of this field, which is going to be very relevant for what we're going to say in a second. We have you published 17 scientific journals. We have ASM Press, which has over 270 book titles. And very importantly, we have the American Academy of Microbiology as a key component of ASM, which is our think tank that really tasked for recognizing the leaders in the field and anticipating what the future needs of microbiology are. So the mission of ASM is rather simple. It's to promote and advance microbial sciences. And note that it's not about to promote and advance ASM. It's not to promote and advance its members. It's not to promote and advance any of our products. It's about promoting and advances the whole microbial sciences. And so very obviously, the microbiome is becoming more and more such a fundamental cornerstone for the microbial sciences, and hence ASM is very committed to this initiative and to many initiatives in this area. So how did it all start? So why are we dealing today with the National Microbiome Initiative? Well, first of all, as it often happens, it all goes back to technology, in my view. Other people may see it differently and may have different perspective, but I think we would all agree that new technology in genomic sequencing, metagenomic and various new generation sequencing, has actually allowed to sequence and identify microorganisms that we did not know existed. So microbiology was facing a very big bottleneck, which was that's still true today in many respects, that we roughly are able to cultivate, to culture about 1% of what we think are the existing microbes in the world. And as you can imagine, that is an incredible limiting factor. Now, this new technology did not help that much maybe with the culturing, but it certainly happened with the identification of the other microbes, and this triggered a true renaissance of the microbial sciences. And we found through this that microbes outnumber, for example, human cells by far, and there are different reports on this, but it's pretty much true that if we were to take a vote, I always say our cells would take a vote in our body, humans would lose, because the microbes will win this race. And the number of cells has been of microbes present in our body has been of great debate. Initially thought there were 10 times more microbes than human cells. Now it seems like it's more 1-to-1 for all the cells containing DNA, so excluding red blood cells. If we include red blood cells, it's about 1-to-1, but if we exclude those cells that don't have a nucleus, it's about 10-to-1 for microbes to human cells. So there's a lot. The area of human-associated microbes has remained, for the reason that I briefly referred to, largely unstudied. And because of all this, great credit needs to go to the NIH, and in particular to the NIH Common Fund, that in 2013 has started what's called the NIH Human Microbiome Project, and then a version 2 of this project. And the goal of this was to generate resources for the characterization of all the human microbiota and analyze these microbes in health and in disease. And the NIH Common Fund was established to really bridge all those initiatives, the science that could not be contained within one single institute at NIH, or that it required resources such that it would require different institutes working together for its either financial or interdisciplinary nature. And the microbiome was certainly characterized in this way, and so NIH took leadership and does. However, if we fast forward to 2015, several ASM members, and among others, have proposed a larger approach to the microbiome, which was called at that time the Unified Microbiome Initiative, to accelerate research and support collaboration. So 2 articles appeared in 2015, one in Science and one in Nature. And here was a representative of the scientific community calling for a coordinated large-scale effort that would optimize the data collection, the sharing of knowledge, and a multidisciplinary approach. Co-authors among these articles were several ASM members, but in particular ASM past presidents Tim Donnery and Jeff Miller. So what these articles were communicating was that there is that this large-scale global initiative was actually needed to understand our community, because microbes are critical to human health and to the ecosystem, but it's also very important for issues that are even broader than the direct human interaction. But for example, at an environmental level, if you go back and we can really see the importance that microbes have in the world, for example, by the oxygen generation. Not only they have generated, they have oxygenated our planet that allowed life as we know it today, human life as we know it today, but also every day they're responsible for a large production of oxygen that we breathe. So every morning when you wake up, remember to say thank you to all the microbes on the planet. Very important was actually the accident of Deepwater Horizon that had dramatically altered the microbial diversity within the Gulf. But also, the power of microbe was shown by efforts of bioremediation, where actually very quickly, actually, the Gulf, from a microbiological perspective, was able to correct many of the damage that was done. And at a health perspective, worth remembering that new technologies such as fecal transplant are actually able to manipulate the microbiome, which in many other ways, because of its complexity, it is very difficult to manipulate in other ways. And from a scientific perspective, we're seeing more and more reports of the impact of microbiome with areas that we could not have imagined, such as diabetes, obesity, and neuroscience. Very important effects on depression and other issues are being very well documented and in the scientific literature. So the microbiome initiative that scientists advocated for was to reveal, those fundamental processes about life and about disease, and environment, as I mentioned. But it was very clear that we could not think of microbiome as a one-off project. It has to be a long-term approach because the complexity of the microbiome is daunting. Actually, many would even argue today saying, it's actually tough to deal with the microbiome because it is so complex that we'll never get a full hang of it. And, personally, I disagree with that. It's true at the present time, but how many times have we seen things that were daunting and we say we could never get a hang of it, and then through studies and investment in technology and putting the great brains together, we were able to accomplish that. But certainly, there is a need for a coordinated effort which goes beyond a one-off or a particular single institution or agency. Most importantly, what is needed are new tools for exploring the microbiome, new tools for data analysis, because a big component of microbiome is actually data analysis, computational aspects. It is, again, so complex that so much data are generated that the connection between bioinformatician and scientists, chemists, physicists is absolutely fundamental. And also, last point I want to make here is that we cannot even think of the microbiome as that one nation can do it all. It is truly a global effort, has to be, because the biome knows no border. And one example that I can just bring to you is very recently a study done in slums of South America, where they were able to study the microorganisms in the microbiome of from the wastewater of these slums, where they identified over 1,000 unknown genes that are thought to be responsible, for example, for antimicrobial resistance. So this is a perfect example of how in our country, here in the U.S. or anywhere in the developed world, we don't know what is to come from the microbe, in this case in a threatening way, because there are reservoirs of antimicrobial genes very large that we haven't seen yet, that are somewhere in certain locations, natural environments, and we know that these one day, could become big threats for the community. So that's why we cannot think of a single discipline or even single geographical area approach to the microbiome. It is truly a global approach. So with this in mind, and all this science happening and the community calling for action at multiple levels, both at the health level and at the environmental level, and by environmental, I wrap into this a very large swath of science. I use the term very broadly. There have been several private and public efforts. So first of all, I'd like to recognize the Kavli Foundation, which started by hosting a fact-finding, so meeting of experts on microbiome, and start thinking, so what is needed? What could we achieve? What are the roadblocks that prevent us from achieving this? At the same time, the White House in the Office of Science, Technology, and Policy joined the Kavli Foundation, and together they published an RFI that focuses on the research, public and private, and try to get a catalog of the actions that were currently ongoing at the various level in funding microbiome. So the National Science and Technology Council in 2015 had a fast-track action committee in mapping the microbiome, and turned out that between 2012 and 2014 there were 12 federal agencies funding microbiome research for about $922 million, and they were at various different levels. So it was determined, we already knew it, but it was quantified in a certain sense that this field was really ready for prime time and taking off like a rocket really, really quickly. And this brings us to May 13, 2016, earlier this year, when the White House announced the National Microbiome Initiative. And clearly, at the White House, we're not superstitious because that was Friday, May 13, and yet the initiative was launched very successfully. So in this picture, I have Jo Handelsman, who deserves tremendous credit for her leadership in OSTP and in being instrumental for launching this initiative. So ASM really commends her leadership, the one of her staff, and the whole administration on this front. The goal of the National Microbiome Initiative is that of advancing microbiome research and its various applications, whether that's healthcare, food production, or environment. Also, the initiative wants to address what are the gaps that are present, develop new tools and methods. And most of all, very important, is that of making comparative studies and actually looking across the ecosystems and really being able to connect the dots in such a diverse space like that of microbiome. In synthesis, there are three main goals articulated by the White House on this. The first one is to promote interdisciplinary research. I think you're getting it. You know, I keep emphasizing this because microbiome cannot be addressed by only one agency, one institute, one organization. It's truly interdisciplinary. We need platform technologies because of the complexities. And very important is that of expanding the workforce in microbiome and training the workforce of the future that is needed for thinking microbiome, which is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, certainly in microbiology. There have been announced together with the White House initiative some fundamental private sector commitments to microbiome research. First and foremost, the Gates Foundation, which announced a $400 million commitment over 4 years. The Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation committed $10 million for 5 years, and the University of Michigan and the Howard Hughes Medical Institute $3.5 million on the microbiome project, and there are more. Just listing here the top investment, and I apologize for the ones that I am not mentioning, but they're all available on the microbiome site at the White House. So what about the federal agencies? The president budget and seen in for between 2016 and 2017, the president budget of 2017 and the current investment in 2016, so a total of $121 million of investment. In particular, $10 million in the Department of Energy, mostly focusing on the bioenergy. NASA has $12.5 million to look at ecosystems on Earth and in space, and the NIH planning to invest extra $20 million on top of what they're already investing, looking at multi-ecosystem and comparison studies to study microbiome. Continuing, we have NSF, who made a big commitment of $16 million in 2017 for microbiomes. And USDA is very interesting because in the president budget received a significant increase, a doubling of their research commitments, and in particular for microbiome, they had $15.9 million from the Agricultural Research Service side and $8 extra million at the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, or NIFA, side. So these are the main commitments from the agency side. And so where are we with all this? Well, as in case you lived under a rock for the past year, you noticed that there have been no appropriation bill that are passed in Congress, and probably given the election year won't happen until after the election, likely with a continuing resolution. But the action so far has seen from both the House and the Senate an increase of over $2 billion for the NIH appropriation bill, which is great news. However, other agencies see flat funding. And so in the absence of a continuing resolution or an omnibus or any solution at the moment, it's hard to predict how things will go. But it is somewhat worrisome from where I sit to see that there is no specific mention of the National Microbiome initiatives in the bills. And this is not unusual. In the past, we've seen for other initiatives like the BRAIN initiative, for example, we didn't see mention in the first year that we launched, it came afterwards. But the concern is the fact that the general political stalemate at the moment is not boding well for big commitments in this area, and the fact that the initiative was rolled out late in the administration is probably also not helping. But the fact that the only increase that we're seeing is on the NIH side and not on these other agencies where there was significant commitment to microbiome leaves a great degree of uncertainty. Sorry not to be able to convey more exciting news on this front. However, I have some good news, and the good news is that the Kavli Foundation has donated $1 million to the American Society for Microbiology, ASM, to lead a consortium with two of our sister societies that are deeply committed to this, and they really commend this great leadership from the society, the American Chemical Society and the American Physical Society. And we've been working together at ASM with these two great organizations and with the Kavli Foundation to launch the Kavli Microbiome Ideas Challenge. And I don't have a date for the rolling out of the request for application, but I can tell you it's very, very close. Probably the very beginning of October, we'll be able to roll this out, and we'll take applications for interdisciplinary research and new ideas, blue sky ideas that can move microbiome research forward. This is a very concrete, it's not huge, but it's certainly a very concrete microbiome initiative that is happening. So if you're interested in this, keep your eyes open, as I said, on the ASM website and on the Kavli website and on the American Chemical Society and Physical Society website. This will broadcast it very broadly, and we're very, very close. So yet again, you can see from the way we're thinking about this how microbiology, microbiome, they sound very similar, and indeed there's a great deal of overlap, no question, and it's really central to our mission. But ASM felt that it is so broad and it is so interdisciplinary that our mission, being that of promoting and advancing microbial sciences, we wouldn't serve our mission well if we didn't expand our horizon to also those other competencies that may be residing with other scientific communities like the chemical and the physical community. So we're very, very proud of this. And again, the word interdisciplinary is going to be essential for this initiative. ASM issued a proposed roadmap for microbiome in an editorial in our journal, MBio, you see here. I also wrote a blog. If you're not following my blog, here's a shameless plug. Follow blog phase. I hope you get the pun on the ASM website. And I wrote about it, and I will write more in the future, certainly about microbiome. So ASM has been very active on the advocacy front for microbiome. As I mentioned, we've published articles in MBio. ASM was chosen by the Kavli Foundation to lead this initiative, and the grants will be dispersed very soon. ASM also back then had sent a letter to OSTP commending for the NSD initiative, and most of all made some recommendation to help shape the microbiome initiative. In particular, what we added was to make sure that mycology was also included, and not to be overlooked. And a very, very important point that I want to make is that what ASM was very cautious and careful in recommending is that not very strong in recommending, but want to be very cautious in letting people know that this is not about diverting funds from basic science to microbiome. So this should be added money for this initiative because the basic science research should continue as it has been going. So this is not about robbing Peter to pay Paul. ASM continues to advocate Congress for this. It's a very tough job. We have great leadership in policy at ASM, in Janet Shoemaker and in her staff, so feel free to reach out to her, to me, or to anyone at ASM if you want any information about this. But we're really trying very hard in an objectively a rather difficult environment. And last thing I would like to mention on this and on the whole my presentation is that we're so committed to this that when a few weeks ago we sent the ASM very top recommendation, very few, 3 to the both the campaign, the transition team, future, one of those will be the transition team. We included microbiome as one of those top priority that ASM is recommending to the administration. So with this, I hope I gave you a quick and hopefully not too painful overview of what's happening in the space of microbiome, and very happy to address any question that you may have.
Well, Stefano, thank you for the terrific overview of the microbiome and also for the outstanding work you and your organization are doing, particularly in the advocacy. We all are in this together, and we value very much our partnership and work with you. We have some questions that have come in, and I invite anybody to submit through the website questions that you'd like Stefano to address. The first question comes in and asks, how much money is being invested in the training of future microbiologists? And second part of that is, do we have the workforce necessary to make the use of the funding and to make the necessary discoveries?
Yeah, these are 2 excellent questions. On the first one, I cannot give you a number. I don't have it at my fingertips. I actually am not sure it even exists as parsed out for specifically for microbiologists. But I'd be very happy to look into this, and if this individual would like to email me, I'd be very happy to get back with a number. I can tell you on this front that the areas like, for example, the National Institute for General Medicine at NIH and IGMS, who's in charge of training, is developing very significant resources in this area, and other agencies are as well. But I can't give you a number, unfortunately, and statistics, especially on training, are quite hard to get by. So I don't know with this degree of specificity whether they exist, but I will certainly look into it. Now,
thank you.
Do we have a workforce trained for this and capitalize on that? Well, no, we're not where we need to be, but I am not extra worried about this, honestly, because this is, let's consider microbiome as a very new area of investigation. And as I mentioned, it requires a set of skills and knowledge that it's not it wasn't taught, especially in biology in general and in microbiology as a suite of skills in the past. So that's why there is this big effort of interdisciplinary approach, and most of all, that's why this is one of the goals, very specific, of the National Microbiome Initiative, because we need to train the workers. So in a sense, this is true, and it's a chicken and egg question, right? So we have the opportunities, and the goal of this initiative is that of training the appropriate workforce in doing this. I'd like to say that what's very exciting about the workforce is that that's something that, if I can expand even beyond microbiome, if you allow me, this is something that I'm seeing in many disciplines. Like, for example, cell biology, another one of these, and certainly microbiology as well. These are disciplines that have been for when I was in graduate school, and certainly when my mentors were in graduate school, they have been fundamentally descriptive disciplines. So we were watching under the microscope. We would have some molecular technologies, but we would infer all our observation from these two main tools. Now, if you look at imaging, in the very few years, I would argue like 10 years or less even, we have made tremendous progress in microscopy. Now we are able to see in living cells at a molecular level the imaging, super resolution microscopy, which was awarded a Nobel Prize a couple of years ago. Such a transformative technology that really moved the fields that need imaging. As I said, it's not just microbiology, but certainly cell biology, neuroscience, and many others, from being fundamentally descriptive discipline to now becoming extremely quantitative discipline. We're dealing with terabytes of data. We're dealing with images where, which are at such a high level of resolution, where the big issue is, am I detecting twice the same molecule, or am I detecting two different molecules attached to two different membranes? These are the type of questions that we have. And again, you know, the workforce for addressing this question, it's still not as diffuse as it should be. So good question. I think that's, I would say we're making great progress. We have people certainly that can do very well in this. I don't want to give you the impression that no one can. That's absolutely not true. But it's an area where we need to expand the workforce in this area, and that's one of the goals of the initiative.
Terrific. And as we promised people that we would keep our webinar within the window of time, we have some additional questions. If you've submitted a question, we'll get back to you. And before you log off the webinar, if you have a question, please type it into the web system here, and we'll get back to you that question, because we see that people are needing to move along to their next topic and item today. So again, thank you, Stefano, for the terrific overview, for being a partner with Research America, and thank you to our members who joined us today. I hope you found this very informative, but please engage in the conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you, Research America, for all that you do.